the sort of the sprint methodology within Agile is essentially the box that you've given people to operate in. As long as they stay within that box during the sprint, what they do is entirely up to them. They then come to the end of a sprint and it's time to come together in a collaborative team.
Okay, so that's the next step. They come back together.
A cross-functional team, which is your Scrum in Agile. And you look at what's happened on the sprint. You look at where things went right or wrong. And then you go back and you talk to the hierarchy and you say, for the next sprint, I need larger parameters. I need a bigger area within which I can sprint, or I need more resource, or I need clearer definition on this or that because we got this slightly wrong. But the beauty of the technique, I suppose, is it brings the best of Agile, but it puts a risk control around it. The amount of delegation that you have given people defines the amount of risk you are taking. Because if they get something wrong, inherently they're doing it in a box that you are happy to contain the risk within. They're not doing something where they get it wrong, which could cause severe, fatal damage to the organisation.
And I think that's where the challenge really comes, is knowing, being able to set those parameters. And so it's a leader being able to have that skill set to define what those parameters are. Is that something that is very difficult for people to set out, do you think? And particularly, obviously, in the forces where risk is something that when you're dealing with people's lives, there's not many instances where you can operate in that way, but obviously there are.
It is a difficult thing to do, because it has to be bespoke to the situation, but it also has to be bespoke to the person. So you may well have an individual who finds any sense of being given freedom and latitude quite frightening, quite intimidating actually, and they're really uncomfortable. All they really want to do is to be told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, by this time. They're happy operating in that way. If you start to give people like that latitude, it can be quite unnerving. So the box of delegation you need to design around them needs to be actually just outside of their fingertips. So they can almost feel it's there, but not quite.
All right.
Whereas conversely, if you've got somebody who is really quite outgoing and positive and confident, if you give them too small a box, they can feel constrained. So understanding that, you're absolutely right, it is key. But I think it's time worth investing, because if you get it right as a leader, then the organisation is becoming much more efficient and has a much higher tempo, because everybody in it is functioning to the very best of their abilities. So the question is, do you impose a lot of control, which you then spend your whole time managing? Do you give very few controls and spend your whole time managing the explosion? I think this tool sits somewhere between the two, where you're giving people freedom, but you control how much exposure you potentially might have.